Hello, everybody. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. Got questions. We've got guesses. I'm Nash. I've been doing Radio Dead Air for ages and ages, but I'm also an IT professional. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gearman, who is in IT as well. We'll be taking your tech questions tonight. If you want to ask us something, if you need some help with something, repairs, buying, whatever, send that to requests@radiodeadair.com. We've got a few questions. We have room for more.
Now, you're going to be putting these on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because it's on YouTube, there's going to be ads, and I think we should have a little ad here. So I've got one ready. No social skills, no friends, small penis. Have we got the car for you? Call 1-420-CYTRUCK. Reserve your Tesla Cybertruck today.
Did you see where Ralph Nate, safety, with the company that he put together about car safety, was dunking on the Cybertruck on Twitter?
I missed that one, but I will look it up after the show. I'm opening Notepad right now.
It was kind
to look
of
up
wonderful.
Ralph Nader Cyber.
Yeah, it was kind of wonderful. I had fun. Well, in addition to your questions and a little bit of news, what we also have tonight is part 2 of the holiday build guide, where we'll be going over what would be in the mainstream we would consider a build, which is about $1,200 for a mainstream gaming PC. Now, obviously, you might not buy the whole thing, but another nice thing about this part of the guide is this is what can give you ideas for what you'll want to upgrade to, or what just keep in mind for parts.
I accidentally closed mine.
Well,
that's okay. It's 2 clicks away.
Before we get to that, we have a little bit of news. Just because it's kind of going to be an issue for a little bit. Especially if you're using AMD.
Yeah. And by the way, just because it's limited to AMD right now doesn't mean the next time this happens, it won't happen to NVIDIA.
Oh no, it can get ambitious. You never know. What's happened at the moment is there is a bug going around in the latest release of Windows 11, which, remember when they give them version numbers and shit?
Yeah. And this version number is called
23H2 or nobody knows what that shit means.
Well, 23H2, no, it does make sense. So it's 23 for 2023 and H2 because what they used to do was do big releases twice a year. So the 23H1 would be the beginning of the year release, and the 23H2 would be towards the end of the year. But I don't remember 23H1.
Do you know what
I'm also not in Windows 11, so.
You know what they used to do? They would take a decimal point.
Yeah.
And they would use a number after the decimal point to know which version you were on. Remember that?
Well, yeah. What happened is some middle management changed and they wanted to put their stamp on things. They said, we'll come up with a new versioning scheme.
Now it's 4. Regardless of...
By the way, this is not the one you may have heard of, where everyone who got 23H2 also got an HP printer driver loaded on their machine. They're still trying to sort that one out.
Now, what's happening is it's causing slowdowns in Ryzen CPUs, which is
up to like 10%, which is very noticeable.
Very big, considering we're talking CPUs like the 5800X3D and the other Ryzen 7000 stuff, which also is chips. Those are made for the gaming stuff. There is not a fix at the moment. There's a workaround.
And the workaround is not great.
It's bullshit.
So
it's bullshit.
Your average computer user, and I'm going to be honest, can handle download and double click.
Yep.
And there's some of you, and I apologize for saying this, but I have coworkers like this. Some of you can't handle that. This one requires you to launch PowerShell. Okay, we're already outside the realm of many users.
The command prompt, the bane of people everywhere.
Run several commands, so you've got to get them in the right order. Then you reboot. You go into the BIOS. Oh, hell no. Then, once that comes back up from that, you go to the Windows security area, which 90% of the population never does anything with,
Nope.
other than, oh, I've got a little flag here in my Windows. Oh, it says I need to just run this update. Again, that falls into the realm of download and double click.
I love this workaround. It is a disaster.
And you change a setting there, you reboot again, and now some new settings are enabled that say, oh, this is now good. You get your CPU and your GPU back.
Yeah. Or you could just not install 23H2. If you see this update pop up in Windows Update, don't install it yet. It's not ready.
They're assuming that AMD is going to release a microcode update to resolve the situation soon.
Yeah.
So quotes around that. We're in the first third of December right now. Honestly, there's a lot of people taking their vacation. There's a lot of people doing whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if that soon is not until January, mid-January.
Don't install this.
I could be surprised.
So yeah, that's if you have a Ryzen, apparently it's not affecting Intel, but if you have a Ryzen CPU, AMD, probably Threadripper's being affected too, oddly.
Yeah, I mean, but the Threadripper ones might be chunky enough that the 5 to 8%, 10% decrease, you might not notice.
Well, they're not really good for games in the first place, but don't install 23H2 yet. If you already have, oops.
And by the way, apparently it's not every game.
No,
but it is a number of them,
including Fortnite, which is kind of like,
which is why people noticed. It was on Grand Theft Auto and Fortnite, and so that's people noticed. If it was on games that were released 4 or 5 years ago, it'd be like you'd have one guy in Poughkeepsie going.
Was released for GTA 5.
Well, yes, but they keep updating it. That's a game that's getting constant updates because they have to add new characters constantly,
and
to get you to keep buying skins.
And they're online games, so they are expected to play them at super high frame rate if you want competitive, and that gets hurt. But Snapperjack, yes. Sorry, I missed it. Thank you for the resub. See that? So that's that news. I have a little bit of extra news for myself. You remember the saga of my hard drive, that SSD that was acting up? I moved it over one slot, and it seemed like the problem went away.
Yeah. Let me guess. The problem didn't go away. It just cycled much slower.
It did not go away. It started doing it again. It was super crashy. So in the middle of a stream, I stopped. I drained the cooling loop. I pulled out the hard drive from the water cooler, which is this part here, the water block. I patched in a tube to replace it. I refilled the loop, and I got the stream started again in 30 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah. Time me. It's like a pit crew. But yeah, that's something this is also affecting my choices on the build guide this year. I'm done with Samsung. This is the last Samsung hard. I'm getting an RMA on this because I bought this thing in July. This is getting RMA. I better be getting a replacement. I'm done with Samsung. This is like the third Samsung SSD that's gone bad on. And that's intolerable. Supposedly they fixed it, but
as Mike looks at his build list and goes, ooh.
There are plenty of competitors for Samsung now. Samsung, about 10 years ago, when we started getting the SATA SSDs the first go around, they were it. Like there were other available, but the Samsung were hands down, no question, the fastest. But now here in 2023, it's got competition. Samsung has competition close enough to be indistinguishable, especially in PCIe 4.0, where speeds are so crazy. You have to be doing specific applications to notice it.
True.
Yeah, Western Digital black drives are good ones there too. Sabrent, XPG, Inland. Yeah, there's a lot of Inland is
Sabrent is really good. They're just really pricey.
Inland is Micro Center's house brand. They're pretty good. So yeah, I'm kind of done with this shit. This is fucking ridiculous. I think it mainly had to do with I've got the 980 Pro, which is the 980 series apparently had problems.
Which of course you didn't find out until after you bought it.
I'm going to hope that the RMA they send me a 990, so I have one that's fixed, but we'll find out. So anyway, with that as the lead-in, for right now I'm fine. I've got another SSD, that's the boot drive. I can run games off that until I get this resolved and get a replacement. What I might end up doing is saying the hell with it, getting a new replacement myself, and then when they send me my RMA, just selling it. Effective, but I've got a show to keep doing. So anyway, with that in mind, we're going to start with this year's build guide for mainstream. Now, this is the double the price of the budget tier, which is budget tier was $600. We doubled it this week to $1,200. This is what we call our mainstream guide. This is a robust gaming computer, serious muchacho. This is one that's the budget build, and if you want to look up the budget build, hey, just look down there on our Twitch page, or I'll put them on YouTube going too. You'll find links to the budget builds both Mike and I put together. They're down there. Keep in mind, prices are shifting. This is based on live prices, so it might not be exactly 600 anymore. But
mine literally raised $5 in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. The idea behind the budget build is to have a PC that is both upgradable and also in a reasonable price range to a console, yet gives you better performance. That was the idea behind the budget build. Something that would be obtainable for someone who is looking at, say, a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, something in the same ballpark. This one is the mainstream. This is for someone who is finally getting serious about a gaming PC. This is the hefty. Well, this is not. I wouldn't call this super hefty because there are way bigger builds. This is what we would consider a reasonable build for $1,200. And again, you might be going, well, I'm not going to buy a whole computer, build a whole computer. We have some part recommendations as part of this, so you can decide what you want to get. Mike says his, I have mine. Let's start with you want to start or you want me to go first?
Oh yeah, but whatever.
Shit, mine literally raised in price like you were literally just saying. Wait a minute.
Well, yours on my screen just dropped to $750 because it doesn't give a price for your video card.
Oh no. Did it just pull that one? Oh, this is gonna suck. Did it just pull the 6800? Oh crap! Well, they just did. Man, this knocks my build. This kicks the feet out from under my build. All of the 6800s, all of them have been delisted. Oh wow! What the hell just happened? What the what? No, it's they're all out of stock. They're all listing is out of stock. Gosh darn it! I was hoping to give you guys a hot tip this year. Well, I guess I'll have to circle back around and come up with an idea on
live, everybody.
Yeah, I mean I'll explain why, but this I see what I'm gonna have to replace it with, and not my ideal here, but yeah,
So while he's replacing, I'm going to talk processors.
Yeah.
Okay. So Nash went with the AMD Ryzen 5 7600 3.8 gigahertz 6-core processor. Really solid processor. I went amazingly similar with the 7600X 4.7 gigahertz 6-core processor. So for basically
I went with
$25, I got a little chunkier of a processor.
Well, let's bring it over here. Big screen. So yeah, I went with 7600. Like I said, Mike went 7600 XT. The thing about these are, the 7600 has got a little bit of an advantage. It is very close to the 7600 XT, but it runs at 65 watts, meaning it's a little bit easier to cool. But if you feel like messing around in your BIOS, it is an unlocked CPU. Even though it doesn't have an X on it, it's unlocked. Go into the BIOS, or you can go into Ryzen Master Software. That will do it too. You won't have to touch the BIOS. Download. You can jack it up to the full 95 watts. It will have the same wattage, and you'll have to tweak it some. Now, you're going to have to decide if saving that little bit of money, and it is kind of a little bit of money because the prices it was like $189 earlier. Now it's up to $194. You're going to have to decide if the price is worth it to you, because the difference between them is the 7600X is $218 and the 7600 is $194. So you have to decide if saving that 25-ish bucks is worth messing around with your system. For some people, it is. Some people, it's not.
I'll say one of my design considerations, as I mentioned last week, was which parts are the most pain in the butt to replace.
Yeah.
Now, a processor's not necessarily a pain in the butt to replace, except the fact that you've got an all-in-one cooler usually on there, and you're going to have to redo that. So I said, well, let's go with a little bit higher, so we're not replacing that soon.
Well, yeah. The other thing is, this is effectively the entry-level Ryzen processor. That doesn't mean it's bad. Performance-wise, gaming performance-wise, this thing is on a par with the 5800X3D, which was the previous gaming champ. So it's already, with no extra V-cache or anything, it's a really good gaming CPU. 6-core 12-thread, get some production done on it. And if you wait a while, this is going to have at least 2 more generations of CPUs will be available for this, maybe 3. So this is a good start to the platform. And the difference between the two is, do you feel like messing around with your system, or do you just want to plug and play? The 7600X would be plug and play. The 7600 will work just fine by itself, but you can mess with it too. So yeah, there are some options. Next up, we're looking at coolers, and this is a very different year than last year for all-in-one liquid coolers. Last year,
the prices were ridiculous, as I recall.
Well, I mean, you went with a Corsair, which is a nice one. This is pretty with the bells and whistles.
But I also went for future proofing. So, in a processor upgrade from now, we can go, oh, I've got a 3-fan cooler on here with some bells and whistles. You went with a 2-fan cooler.
Let me look. It should be a 360.
Was yours a 360? I thought it was.
That's the. Yeah, here it is. There's no picture of it on PC Part Picker for some reason, but what has changed this year is that Thermalright, which a company that was already disrupting the air cooler market with some really incredible, like $15, $16 air coolers, which were like insane and doing a great job at like undercutting everybody. Noctua, Cooler Master, all the big names are getting the knees knocked out from under them by Thermalright. Well, Thermalright has decided to move on, and now they're messing around with with all-in-one liquid coolers. Folks, this is a 360 ARGB all-in-one water cooler. Fans, AM5, Intel 1700, 60
That's an amazing price. I wish I'd seen that one and it had bothered to look up Thermalright, because I'd forgotten that they had done that undercutting on the
these are new. These are just come out. This is a $60 all-in-one liquid cooler. And it's Thermalright.
I think that may be why I missed it, because I was filtering based on a little bit of reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And there may not be a lot of reviews on this guy yet.
It's looking okay on Amazon, which take that as you will. I feel sure we're going to see some within the next few weeks. We're going to see Gamers Nexus, and because for $60 for a 360 all-in-one, the entire industry is going to be going, wait, what? Oh shit! Oh shit! Now there is going to be some price competition on these. So $60 used to be the price of like a fairly chunky air cooler. Now you can get one of those for like $30. So it's what Thermalright's doing. It's crazy. Now the advantages to the let's see, the Corsair is it's a known name. You have the Corsair ecosystem, a little bit of RGB on there. Don't have the RGB fans, which I will tell you, Corsair is so damn stingy with their, and they've just been moving the price up, especially with that iLink system, which I will not touch with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, I agree.
You didn't get an iLink one, but there is an iLink all-in-one cooler that not a 10-foot pole. It's just you'd be stuck to that stupid ecosystem. This is crazy. If I were building a system myself right now, I would snap this up, because
I would right now. I'd say the best. Just looking back and forth, and we're going to get further into this as we go on.
Yeah,
the best build here is a combination of our builds.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. All right. Let's see what's next. That's our coolers. What's next here?
Motherboard.
We a little bit of, we went two different ways on this with my fit. Oh, it's my shit. Here's my over here. Back over here. So next up on the motherboard, you went with an MSI Pro X670P, which is hefty little boy.
It is.
Now this isn't an X670E. However, all that X670E indicates is that what's the difference on they make? Is this one not?
I'll tell you I'll tell you the primary reason I went with this one.
Yeah.
4 M.2 slots.
That's nice. Let me see. Does this one have a 5.0 M.2? Let me look at what they have available on. Check the website. Just see. 5. PCIe 4.0 slots. Now, that's not going to be a big issue for a while. Okay?
Yeah.
The PCIe 4.0 is still fine. Every motherboard uses not motherboard. Every video card still uses PCIe Gen 4.0. We haven't saturated. You're not going to see a need for PCIe 5.0 for at least another few years. Like probably not until the RTX 60 series or the RX 8000. We're not going to see it or maybe 9000. We're not going to see it for a while. He has a few more PCIe 5 lanes. This motherboard does, however, have a PCIe 5.0 slot for the M.2 drive, which again, it's one of those, will you even notice this? It is some future proofing. Wi-Fi 6, 2.5 gig LAN. Those are kind of nice cooling on this. This big chunky VRM and chipset cooling. Smaller. Screen smaller. Yeah, it's not a bad pick. MSI, good company. I say this as using an Asus right now. I've kind of gotten turned off of Asus. I thought I would give them a try this time. I've got an X670E from Asus. It's the Prime Pro, and nope, I'm not touching Asus again after this. I think I can make this work for a while. Hope I can make this work because I really don't want to have, but it's been hinky, and that's kind of like Asus was the one that was primary. Other motherboards had the issue, but Asus was the first one to display that burning the Ryzen CPU alive problem. With the voltages were wrong, so I can't recommend Asus. But what I am recommending for the first time ever, and not in a budget build, I kind of can't believe this myself. The ASRock B650E PG Riptide Wi-Fi. ASRock for years before this they were the budget. They were the also ran. They were the one that, everybody's just like, you got ASRock if you had no choice. Now they got competitive, especially with the prices on motherboards spiking. ASRock saw an opportunity. This one does have some limitations over Mike's. For one thing, it has only 3 M.2 slots. One's a 5, one's a 4, one's a PCIe Gen 3. So it does have some limitations. Now, you may not notice that, or you might, but still, it only has 3 M.2 slots. Can't make use of them. It does have a PCIe 5.0 slot, if that matters to you going forward. I looked at what was available in the B650 area, and unless you're someone like me, X670 might not be what because I work with this, I stream with this, I edit with this. This is a computer that makes money for me. That's what I would start. I mean, if you can get a deal on X670, there's no reason not to. But
yeah,
just for most people, B650 and B650E, you'll be fine with that. Even if you are doing like a little bit of editing and some other stuff, you'll still be fine with it. It's really robust for being the.
I'll say the price difference between our two motherboards is $5.
It was really.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the price. No, yeah, the price moved up. It was $189. Is it still $189?
Yours is still $189. Mine's $194.
$194. All right, so we get there are some options down there at that level, depending on what you want out of it. X670 may give you a little bit more overall, and having 4 M.2 slots might be something they're interested in, especially as they get, well, for right now, they're not going to get cheaper. They're going to get more expensive, actually. But that expandability is nice. Or you might want to care about your GPU going forward. And if you're thinking you're going to keep this motherboard for a while and get one of those super fast PCIe 5.0 when they come out, maybe you want to do that. There are some options here. Okay, let's see. What is next? RAM.
Memory. You absolutely should go with Nash's pick on RAM, because my pick is the same company,
Corsair,
the same price, and I somehow picked slower RAM.
DDR5 5600 CL36. Yeah, I got TR6000 CL36. Corsair. I have been a long time fan. While I might not be having fun with their iLink system, their RAM has been rock solid. I've been running Corsair RAM for years. There are some cheaper options. You can shop around and look at that. I chose to go without RGB because that made a big price difference. 32 gigs of RAM at this level, 32 gigs is your minimum. You're not going under 16 gigs used to be. Now it's for this price for like, what was it, 89 or 104?
104.
Yeah, this price at this level, $100 for 32 gigs of RAM. Absolutely. Pick that. DDR5, pick that. Another thing you should look for, and I didn't do it myself, but it's something that if you're interested in this, when you're shopping for DDR5, do a little research and try to find out, I think it's Hynix A-die or S. A die. I think it's A die. I could not for the life of me quickly explain the difference between A die and M die, and it's an internal code for the RAM they're using. Hynix A die. If you look up whatever model of RAM you're thinking about buying and type in SK Hynix A, see if it is that. The reason why is it overclocks like a mother. Like I have, to give you an example, my RAM is Corsair. It was DDR 5600. But it's Hynix A die. With a little bit of effort and some research, I pushed it very easily up to DDR 6000 with CL30, which is pretty nice, especially considering what they were charging for that at the time. That applies going higher too. If you buy like DDR 6000 and it's Hynix A die, you might be able to, with little to no effort, no real changing of your system, push that all the way up to DDR 6400 or something like that. Buildzoid is a fellow on YouTube who does a lot of this stuff, has a really couple of really comprehensive Ryzen memory overclocking guides that tell you the tricks and what to do. If you're everybody else and you're like, I ain't got time for that crap, I understand you. DDR5 6000 should be your floor for what you're going to get. Even AMD has said for Ryzen, at least currently, DDR5 6000 was the sweet spot. You can't go faster because due to a nice BIOS update, not a BIOS, a GISA, the microcode for the Ryzen. They did an update, and now it supports even faster RAM than it did at release, with just by a software fix. So you could get faster RAM, but DDR 6000 should do most. And there's always the overclock. Okay, let's see what is next. Storage. They went two different ways on this. I skimped on this because I was trying to. I tried to nickel and dime as much as I could because most of my build went into the video card. And
which is now not available.
Yeah. 1 terabyte Team Group T-Force Ardea. Simple as hell. It's probably it is a PCIe 4, so it's decently fast. Probably not the fastest on the market, but it's a reliable company. It's a name people know. It'll work. And I only went with 1 terabyte because even though 2 terabytes are all the way down to $100 now, and that might be a consideration for you, I was trying to save on this overall build. Like we mentioned last week, this right now, this window is your time to buy M.2 drive. And also anything that's an SSD NAND flash, because next year, all the companies, Hynix, whatever they call it, used to be Toshiba, I forget what they call themselves now. Western Digital, Samsung, they are all cutting production on flash.
Technically, this feels like they're illegally collaborating, but no one's probably going to investigate.
No one's gonna do shit. They're cutting production in order to bring the prices back up on clear out old stock because they've had like an abundance of hard drives just sitting around. This is when you're going to get really good prices on them. Next year, it's going to get much harder to find these kind of prices for 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte drives. This is a great time for a 2 terabyte drive. $100, 2 terabytes, it's a nice bill. But I went with the 1 terabyte just to save that $50 because I had to shuffle some stuff around for it. Mike went
I somehow went with an PCIe 3 because apparently I can't read. And I saw PCIe 3 times 4 and my head went PCIe 4.
Well, this is actually this is something to keep in mind. Even someone, we do this is our profession, and you can get tripped up by this because they're still selling a 1 terabyte drive for $100, depending on where you find it. always read the listings very carefully. M.2 drive, you want at least PCIe 4.0. Should be in somewhere in the description, PCIe 4.0. The price will trip you up. You'll think, well, this is the same price. It'll trip you up because it's kind of goofy out there. So you definitely want to go with the PCIe 4.0, whatever you get. There's no good reason to go with it. Just make sure you read the listing carefully. It'll fuck you up.
Yeah, it got me this time.
Okay. Now, Mike.
Yeah.
This is the one I'm side-eyeing you on.
Okay.
An RTX 3060.
I really ran out of money.
An RTX 3060 in 2023.
I did look it up, and it still is getting good reviews saying, hey, this is still an okay card for 2023.
And it is. And it's which is kind of a shame, all things because of how things are set up over on NVIDIA's side. But
for my build, it was the place where if you have an extra $100, you can get a better card. But I'm limited sort of to 1,200.
Well, you know what gave me the extra push was that Team Group 1 terabyte and the AIO from Thermalright.
Yeah,
that gave me the big
honestly,
push.
and that's the two places where if you put Nash's cooler in my build, that would probably free up enough money to get at least, well, you might get close to a 3080.
Well, honestly, I went AMD on this because for the money, you really simply, and here, this is what I initially went with when it was still available, and this is irritating the hell out of me. What I initially went with was an RX 6800, 16 gig, and it was coming in at around $380 to $400. And at that price, it was insane because it was outperforming the 7700 XT, the RX 7700 XT. It was outperforming everything up until the only thing that was really beating it on NVIDIA side was the 4070. And that's a $500 card. So,
yeah, which we're not putting in a $1,200 build.
So you had 16 gigs of RAM on the RX 6800. If you can find one of these, snap it up. It is a steal. But, so my fallback on this, unfortunately, because it's gone now. And I even picked an ASRock card too to match the motherboard. Nice. Fallback on this is now the 7700 XT, which is just one rung down performance-wise from the 6800 XT, which is, again, that's a problem overall. AMD and NVIDIA have both played silly buggers with the naming this time around.
Yeah, so it can be very confusing. Again, as we mentioned just a moment ago, I got messed up by buying a PCIe 3.
Well, this is worse than that because this is worse than that because this is deliberately.
Well, this is deliberately confusing. I misread. Yeah. This is deliberately confusing.
Okay, so it used to be we had some very clear delineation on the product stack. You knew what was equivalent to what. And when a new generation came around, say we had, way back in the day, we had the GTX 580. So the assumption was when the next generation came out, which was the 700 series, don't ask. When the 700 series came out, the expectation was that the 770, which was one tier down the product stack in the new generation, was going to
be about equivalent.
Yeah, it was going to equivalent. It was going to be equal to higher up the product stack in the previous generation, which meant you got the same performance from a couple of years ago, but you got it at a much lower price. And that was how things went for a while, up until this generation of cards.
Yeah,
and also
this is like the level of confusion that they have deliberately built into this, I feel is the same level of confusion that USB manufacturers put into their devices, where they said this is this thing, and it's this thing, and you'd have to literally go line by line on the spec. Okay, this is the one I'm looking for because it has the right speed.
What happened here? Ugh. If you look at the actual silicon, the chip itself, the amount of silicon, the size of the die that is the chip, the 7700 XT's die size looks a lot like the 6600 die size, which means it's smaller than it should be at this class. Now, obviously, there is a die shrink and they're getting more. But if that held true, this should have been the 7600. This should have been the performance gains carry over from the previous generation, and you would have 6700 performance at a much lower price. Instead, they bumped the name up to keep the price up, which is why the RX 6800 is able to handily beat it easily for cheaper, for about $40 cheaper if you can still find it. Now, this is still a good card. It's just they're all overpriced right now. But in the $400 to $450 range, you really can't beat them. You have to go up to $540 at the RTX 4070 to beat this. What you're giving up is in that $100 is DLSS and NVIDIA's ray tracing performance, which is still they've got a considerable lead on AMD there, if that matters to you. And if it really does, then your choice is going to be, at this price range, the 4060 Ti 16 gig. Crap, but that gets you those features. It's just going to perform overall worse than this. If you don't care about those features, in pure rasterization, this is as good as a $550 card, or call a $500 card. This is really, AMD is kind of the value leader, even if they are being deceptive in their product stack naming, just like NVIDIA is. I sit there and I think if AMD had just decided to do their normal product stack, they could have undercut NVIDIA this entire generation, grown their user base, gotten a lot more people interested in using AMD cards just simply for the value proposition and performance. And it would have changed a lot of stuff, and it would have built up the market for AMD. But AMD's marketing people said, no. We're going to grab every last little dollar, even if we screw over our customers, because that's what they do. That's what corporations do. But in this case, in screwing over the customers, they screwed over themselves. Very irritating. This is all a result of that AI bubble.
Yep.
The reckoning on that will come eventually, and it's going to be very funny because there are going to be executives who won't be employed anymore. So that's something to remember. Now let's move back on. Let's look at cases. You went with the same one.
I went with the same case I went with last week because, well, it's a very effective little case, as the 4 free fans, again in white. And I'm not joking, by the way. The black version of this case is $40 more. I don't know why.
I think I got a little bit of a better go on. That's from Montech. Montech is a little company that has just exploded in the last year plus making cases. I went with their Montech Air 903 Max, partially because it comes with 3 fans, 3 140 millimeter fans.
That's a pretty good deal.
You get even bigger fans with this one. 3 of them are ARGB, one is just a pure white. Mesh front panel, and we keep saying if you're
I think you might get 4 fans.
Yeah, 4 fans. 3 in the front, 1 in the back. I said 3?
You said 3. You said 3.
These are 440 millimeter fans. It also has space in the top for a 360 millimeter all-in-one, obviously because I got one, so it has to fit. Montech, their price and performance has been nice. This is not, you know, an innovator of a case. This is a sturdy sort of work. Got the power supply shroud. It's got space for some radiators. It's got some decent cable management. Nice fans included. The difference, but getting slightly larger fans means you get the same performance as the smaller fans, but at a lower speed. An overall quiet case. That's a nice little bonus. The same price for both cases. This is for $70. This was a crazy deal.
Yeah. I think they're both really good deals. It's going to depend on what your availability is.
And of course, we say this over and over: mesh front.
Yep.
Or, if not a mesh front, if you get a glass front, make sure there is a side place on the other side, not instead of the front. Make sure there's some place to bring in air in a large quantity, because if you don't have that in a glass front case, it's going to choke all your stuff. You're going to lose performance just because you have a fancy looking case. Do it. No glass front unless it has some sort of ventilation. Mesh front is simpler. Just get a mesh front case and you have it squared away. Power supply, we both got kind of close. And you know what? This one jumped up $5. Damn. Shows you how crazy this stuff gets.
It's the Christmas season. What happens is they because everything's computerized these days, it's dynamic pricing. Yeah. So they go, oh, we just sold 100 of these things. Let's bump the price up $5 for the next 100.
We both went with the 750 watt power supply because at this price level, going lower is stupid. 750 gives you room to bump yourself up to a much more beefy video card. You're not running a 4090, but you could run maybe a 4080 or 4070 Ti. That might be a good idea there. I went with Seasonic. You went with Corsair. There's not this is basically a difference in brand. Corsair is known, reputable. They've been around for frickin' ever.
Now, of course, the nice thing with both these, they're both gold rated, so you save a little bit on your power bill there, and they're both fully modular, so you're not connecting the cables you don't need.
At this price level, at $100 for a power supply, these days it had better be completely modular. Do not need to have a permanent cable on there, not even for the 24 pin.
Yeah, I think we're probably a couple of years away from them stop making non-modular entirely, just because it will simplify production.
Maybe for consumer stuff. I mean, I could still see like
corporate maybe
will still have the squids, but yeah, so Seasonic is a big reputable name. Corsair is a reputable name in power supplies. Their Antec is okay. They haven't been making. EVGA is pretty much gone. If you're running short on money, Thermaltake is a maybe, but you really should be getting a Seasonic or a Corsair at this point. So, pre-built will still use non-modular. It's a way to cheap out. Other things to note now that that's our builds for this year. Other things to note is we are this far away. January. NVIDIA is going to release 4070 Super, 4070 Ti Super, and the 4080 Super. Now, that might not mean a lot of you because you're I'm not paying for 4070 Super. That's okay. But
might cause the used market to pop up a little bit as people go, hey, I got Christmas money in.
It might increase the used market's price, decrease the used market's prices, so you'll have some used options. What's left of the 4070s, the 4070 Ti's, and the 4080s are going to sell out. They're probably going to go on a little bit of a sale. Once they're gone, they're gone. So if you want to wait until January, you might be able to get a nice deal on a 4070, maybe closer to 500, maybe a little under 500. For $500, the 4070, it performs about as well as an RTX 3080. It's a good little card. So if you can find a deal on it under $500, I wouldn't waste your time on the Supers. Just let the Supers be on the market and depress prices a little bit. I'll tell you, On AMD's side, they aren't going to have anything to directly compete. So all they'll be able to do is lower prices. So what I'm saying is around if you want to hold off and not get your card this December, if you're looking for a video card, January might be a nice spot for it, because those super cards are going to make everything just a little bit cheaper. But at least on the NVIDIA side, if you're looking for maybe a deal, you're going to have a limited window, because once those 4070s, TIs, and 4080s sell out, they're gone. NVIDIA's not making them anymore. The supers are replacing them. So, except I think the 4070 might sit alongside the 4070 Super. We'll see what happens. But whatever happens, prices are going to get a little bit of downward pressure on. Keep your eyes open. That's it for the build. So
yeah,
next week is the fun. Next week is our no limit, anything goes, what we would build, what we could build with unlimited cash. Couple talk about the top of the market, the tip top, the biggest and baddest monsters in the market.
Now, there's a couple things I'm not going to look at, and I'm going to say this up front. I am not going to go with the new Threadripper just because I want something that has a upgrade path, and it's also still on DDR4, isn't it?
No, DDR5, but it's ECC DDR5. It's registered DDR5. It won't run with just regular DDR5. You have to have ECC DDR5. So I make no such promise. I'm gonna go crazy with my shit because I can. So that'll be next week. Right now it's time for your questions. If you have tech questions, you can go and send those to requests at radiodeadair.com. We can help them. Got a few already. Another one came in while we were here, so let's get through these. All right. Start with the problem child here. Not saying you're a problem child, Bradley. And I hope you're here. If you're in the channel, let me know, because we'll need to know some stuff.
We might need to, yeah.
Hey, Nash and Mike. I built a computer the other day, and it keeps randomly restarting with a blue screen of death every 15 to 100 minutes. Errors are different. I've seen page fault, non-page area, kernel security check error, and IRQ not less or equal. First error seems most common. I've tried reinstalling Windows, reinstalling drivers, scanning both drives to the command line, update check disk, updating BIOS. Fans are running, processors at 37C while the computer's running, and I can access and run any software drive normally until the system crashes. Excuse me. Okay. This is
so the first thing I would do with this, because this is often, not always, but often a memory error.
Yeah, page fault in non-paged area it indicates error, a memory.
So first thing I would do is remove and reseat the memory, just to see maybe it's not plugged in 100% right, and that's causing an issue. And if that clears it up, fantastic. The second thing I would do is go, hey, do you have some other DDR5 you can borrow, and drop it in there and see if it's your existing RAM that has somehow bad, in which case RMA it.
And another thing to do is go into the BIOS and turn off XMP. XMP is XMP is kind of a deceptive marketing practice. You will see RAM that's rated at DDR 6000, DDR 100, DDR 7000, DDR 8000. Now, there is no such thing as DDR 6000. There's no such thing as DDR 8000. There's DDR 4700. That's what the DDR is. All of those other numbers, even if they're coming on the box, those are all overclock settings. That's what XMP and Expo, those are overclock settings. And while they may have tested the RAM to run that way, and it might have passed their setting, it might have been able to run those settings stable, you got an MSI B760 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi, that motherboard and that CPU might just go, I can't do that. You might have lost the silicon lottery.
Yeah. And part of this is because, of course, they cannot test on every possible configuration. And it may just be there is some tiny little firmware bias setting, something that says, no, I just can't do it.
Or you have a 13600 KF. Your 13600 KF might just have not the greatest memory control. It happens. There are ways around it. You'll have to play around with you'll have to manually tune the RAM yourself. Maybe give it a little bit looser timings and increase some voltages manually. But overall, this you might have to do some fiddling, or you might have to go with different RAM. But the one thing you don't add here that we really kind of need is from your event viewer. The event viewer will give you error messages that will. Those blue screens are kind of freaking you. Sometimes they say
they're very generic.
They're generic,
so it won't throw up all the information. It'll say, hey, okay, so for example, let's take page fault, non-paged area. That is sort of a laundry list of things that get stuffed into that display of errors, which you can find out if you Google search on that, and it goes, oh yeah, well that could be this or this or this or this or this or this. And it's just a list of things. We're going with memory because memory is really common on this one.
But those blue screens, they flash by so fast, they're often not really helpful. What you want are the event viewer. Find that, just go to your start bar and type in event viewer, and it will you to it.
And then you're going to the Windows log, and you're going to the system log. And that will show you errors. And mine has several, because apparently there's some S-channel bullshit going on.
Well, you're always going to find some errors in event or warnings, because there's a lot going on in the back. You might be able to, if you don't like that, you can probably fix them. But here's an example. This was the error I was having on my SSD. Over a little bit. The event 1 WEH logger. This says fatal hardware error, blah 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 blah. It's a red exclamation point you're going to be looking for. You'll look for it around the time of the crash. So because it has a date and timestamp on when the crap happened. And another trick, I found this out, just dealt with this myself recently. Go under details, and down here where it says down where it says, come on, event data, there is a string that says raw data. Copy that whole thing. Then go online and look for something that says hex to text converter. And what that will do is it will take this is a hexadecimal code. It'll take the hexadecimal code, convert it to text. Some of it won't translate, but enough might translate to give you an idea of which exact component has gone and done doofed. But yeah, so if you have access to the event viewer, please send us that error, because it'll help us narrow it down a lot more, exactly what's causing it. But right now, yeah, you should be checking the page fault non-page area. That tends to be a RAM error. Like Mike said, reseat your RAM, see if someone can loan you some DDR5 to check and see if it's that particular RAM, and turn off your XMP settings. Your system will definitely boot and run without XMP turned on. The RAM will be a little bit slower, but it'll be functional until you can figure something else out. All right, let's see who's next. Akeem here. All right. First, I managed to get a hold of a job, and I want to replace my A8 I've had for 5 years. Currently, I'm considering the Samsung A52 as it has a good combination of price, improved specs, and a headphone jack. Though I'd like to know if there are any other options as well, as long as it has a headphone jack and is below 600. Okay.
Okay, so headphone jack is getting rarer and rarer.
I say this as somebody who used to love the headphone jack and insisted on it. I've learned to live with it. It killed me because the dongle is cheap and functional. There are the any of these phones that don't have a headphone jack easily dealt with by getting a USB-C to 3.5 headphone jack dongle. Make them super cheap. Let's see if I can find
Hey, I found one.
They're very cheap, and like
So
Mike is showing
this
here,
This is a dual one. What it does is I have the USB-C to headphone jack here, and then this is a dumb power charger. It provides no data. It's just a magnetic clip-on charger, so it just it powers up the phone. I use this at work so I can charge my phone and listen to music at the same time.
and they're not super. This is the one I have. They're not super expensive. This one is $14. You can charge and use your headphone at the same time. It's not ideal. I kind of hate it. The reason they took the headphone jack out was it allowed them to make the phones flatter, and it saved them a few pennies on adding the head. They're like, hey, you want a headphone jack? Get one yourself. And that's what we've ended up having to do. Let me put it up on the screen where you can actually see it. This is the one I have. They're nice. They work. But the reason why I'd say that, because all the phones are the new stuff, they're getting rid of the headphone jack. And if you're wedded to it, you're going to miss out. I'm going to recommend to you the phone I'm using because I've been using it for a while. It's really good. I have no qualms with it. It's a nice, affordable phone. Google Pixel 7a. Technically, I didn't pay for it because I got it as part of a Google Wi-Fi or Google Fi promotion, where it's going to be free for me. It's a thing. Normally it's $500, which is a bit, but if you're paying that off as part of your phone, you might want to do. It's relatively recent. It's very quick. I have had not one problem with it. The only thing I would recommend is get a little silicone case for it that's got some traction to it because the body itself is a little slick. That's my one and only, one of my complaints. The other is this in-screen fingerprint sensor. Not the best. It works, but sometimes it gives me trouble, especially if maybe I'm a little sweaty, or if I've been moving just at all. The fingerprint goes, what the fuck is that? It's not a fingerprint. Fuck you. So, it is a little on the. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit smaller, but not terribly. The screen is very nice. I believe it's an OLED. I've had like little to no problems with this as a phone. It's what I'd recommend. Samsung is, I've had problems with them as a brand and I wouldn't go back to them. LG got out of the market. Way I would recommend an iPhone.
Agreed. The only advantage I feel the iPhone has is in a corporate environment.
Yeah.
You can sit there and you go, we have 200 iPhones across the corporate environment. We can manage them from one interface.
Yeah. Which, if you would have told me 10 years ago that an Apple device would be the choice of a corporate environment, I would have laughed in your face. Just see here. Just gonna open up T-Mobile and see what they have. Just look at their what they have, what they're offering right now in the price range. What I think about it, and a lot. Just it says T-Mobile, but there's gonna be there are others. Also, you should definitely, whatever you get a 5G phone. There's no reason not. And I know it's not in your price range, but do not get one of those bendable screens yet. We're not there. It's a bad idea. Let's see. 5G phones. If I have to move on, I'll bite the bullet. Yeah, I know. I know, but that's just where everything is going now. It sucks. But what about one of those flip phones? If it's got a bending LED, if it's got a folding LED screen, no, don't touch it. Maybe we'll get there and it will be acceptable going forward, but no, I wouldn't trust one. Galaxy S23, Pixel 8, Pixel 7a, it's down to 500, which the Razr is also foldable. No. I've never heard of Rebel. That seems to be a T-Mobile brand. I don't know anything. Motorola, Moto G Stylus 5G. I've liked Motorola as a brand, so I have no problems with them. That's only $300. I think it's a little bit of an older. And there's Motorola Edge is 500, so that's probably a little. Yeah, so Motorola is a brand that's not terrible. Nokia's back. When did that happen? Who bought out what was left of Nokia? Good Lord.
The Cavalli goat bought them.
The goat bought. Good Lord. Wow. I thought that is, they're an undead brand. I thought Microsoft killed them for good. Do you remember that a while back? If you don't remember at home, Microsoft thought they were going to make a Windows phone to compete with the iPhone because there was an Apple phone and Android is technically a Linux phone. So they were going to make a Windows phone. They bought Nokia and it was a disaster. And they destroyed the company. And it was hilarious. Unless you worked there, and that was terrible. I didn't know Nokia was back. And they're making Android phone.
Of course.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch the foldings ones right now. They don't seem to yet. We don't be a beta tester for them. That's a bad call, especially if it's phone. Maybe wait a few years if they get it right. I don't think I wouldn't. I'm not there yet. If here's how I can tell you. If Apple isn't willing to put it on their phones yet, it's not ready. Because Apple wouldn't do it unless they could. It would be it would if it was could cost them their reputation. They won't put it on the iPhone. And yeah, if Apple doesn't have it yet, it's not ready. Okay.
True, because the Google phones do add, or the Android phones do add a lot of features. Yeah, there's that meme where the iPhone person goes, "Wow, I just got this great feature. What do you think?" And the Android people go, "Yeah, I got that 3 years ago."
Well, the features, yeah, but I'm talking straight up hardware. That's something software shit you can add later, but the folding screens when Apple starts when Apple makes an iPhone with a folding screen, I'll start trusting the technology.
Because I think the Apple folding screen will be it'll be an origami flower, and you unfold it, it's a phone.
Hey, your other question is, second, I'd like to educate my cousins about using the internet as they aren't very net savvy, and the internet is getting worse and worse thanks to crap like AI poison search engines. What are some fundamentals I can teach them to help navigate this shitification? Shout out to Dr. And is there a substitute search engine to use in place of Google, given currently how dog water it is? Well, tips I can give you. It's rough. There is always the Reddit trick, which is adding whatever you search for, add Reddit to it, because Reddit is apparently the last bastion of keeping it functioning on the search engine. Bing is moving to the same place that Google is. They're both, Microsoft and Google are both like AI. Yeah, it's
DuckDuckGo is okay, and it's very
okay.
privacy focused.
Yeah, but any other search engine that's not Google or Bing, they're going to be limited by the fact that they don't have the same partners. People aren't making websites with them in mind. Um, they're doing it the old-fashioned way, the old way of search engines. You may find better results there on DuckDuckGo. I mean, there's no reason not to use it. It's free. It's not gonna kill you. But yeah, eh, it's hard. It's hard to say. Find how to tell if you're finding something might be AI if it's hard to tell for you. Um, find a or mostly find out look for a byline. If there's no byline on any article, nope. If there is a byline, Google the name, search the name. If nothing comes back, nope.
One thing to honestly do, since you already mentioned Cory Doctorow,
Yeah.
is check his blog for cybersecurity articles and get your cousins. It was cousins or was it nephews?
Yeah,
cousins to read several of those.
Nokia.
You can do a lot worse.
Apparently, Foxconn bought Nokia.
Okay.
Instead of killing the brand, they'll just kill their employees. Okay, so moving right along. So hopefully that helps you out, Hakeem. If you have anything else. Just a quick one for you. Would it be worth it to get a Thunderbolt 4 card for my system? It's newish and already has USB-C available, but is there an advantage to Thunderbolt? Thanks, Nathan.
Not really.
Thunderbolt 4. All right. Thunderbolt is sort of the proprietary USB, and that's not the best description, but that's kind of what it is. It is cross-compatible with USB. So USB devices will work if you plug them into Thunderbolt. But not all Thunderbolt devices will work if you plug them into USB. It's Intel's super fast interconnect that works like USB. And initially it was made for Apple because it was included in Macs. Thunderbolt came to Macs first before it came to others. It has some neat tricks. It has a lot of bandwidth. And
it has up to double the bandwidth of USB-C actually.
USB or whatever 3 or whatever.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. But you basically have to have Thunderbolt the entire path of what you're doing with that bandwidth.
And there are monitors that you can run off of it. And hard drive. I think they're hard drive interface. In some instances, there are video card interfaces that were running off of Thunderbolt. You could run it, like if you had a laptop, you could run an external video card plugged into Thunderbolt, although that was very iffy and brand dependent. But we're on the cusp of USB 4. And USB 4 will be coming very soon. Big TM on that. There's going to be a lot of overlap between USB 4 and Thunderbolt, and I think USB 4 is probably going to be the nail in Thunderbolt's coffin. If you are really concerned about the super duper speed that you want to put in your newish system, wait for a USB 4 card. Because I guarantee you it's going to have a lot more compatibility, a lot more widespread availability, and it's probably going to end up being cheaper. I just see the Thunderbolt card's like about $100. That's like a USB 3 card is like $20, $25, depending on where you get it from.
Yeah.
Is anything outside Thunderbolt anyone use Thunderbolt outside Apple? A couple things like monitors.
Some music interface items use Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
Some monitors, yeah.
But it's for most people, it's just so fairly specific, and USB 4 is going to take over for Thunderbolt because there's bandwidth compatibility. It's about as fast. More things will work with it, so I wouldn't bother.
A not horrible analogy would be that Thunderbolt is the monster cable of USB.
Yeah. Like Firewire. All right. Got another one came in from Electo. Says,
Okay.
hello, Nash and Mike. I recently acquired a secondhand Panasonic SA BT 300 7.1 surround sound system, but it's missing the front tower speaker. Is there any reason I can't put 4.2 millimeter connectors on the front speakers from my old RCA speakers from the RTA 2770?
Okay, so what was that model number again?
All right, the receiver, the surround sound system, SA-BT 300. That up too. Let me see. This is what it comes down to.
SA or SC?
SA.
Oh, there it is.
All right, let's have a look at this. Blu-ray home theater system. Okay, that's assuming it's probably 4K ready. Or is it? Say 4K anywhere? It is not 4K ready. That's a big strike again. Just
okay, and she said it's missing the front speaker.
Yeah, the front two tower speakers, Electo. Yeah. I don't know if that's a shame, but
it's got a robust back panel, so I think as long as you impedance matched, you could.
That's well. Okay, let's get around to it. First of all, in case y'all didn't know at home, if you want to get a surround sound receiver for your television, and if you have a 4K television, the receiver has to be 4K too. That's because of the way HDMI works.
Yep.
It connects.
Otherwise, it will. Otherwise, it will basically downsample.
Right.
Or in some cases, just may not work.
It connects to the TV via HDMI, and that means the signal has to go through on HDMI bandwidth. If the receiver isn't up to 4K bandwidth, it will slow everything down, and you won't be able to get a 4K Okay, thank you, Electo. Good. You're running optical from the TV into the receiver. Okay, well, optical. Yeah, optical. You're fine. Optical gets around the HDMI thing. Optical is a fiber optic connector. It doesn't need HDMI. You're fine then. You're great. Okay, so like Mike was saying, the important thing to know here is the impedance of the speakers that you're going to be getting, that you're going to be replacing them with, which is RT 2770. Okay, let me look that up.
Now I'll say, Nash, if I found a picture of the back panel of this guy.
Yeah.
And the back panel lists the impedance of each set of speakers, which is nice. Some places don't do that. They expect you to have the manual, or just, oh no, you blew a speaker, you've got to pay us hundreds of dollars to get a replacement.
There it is. I've got the same picture. Come on. Give me the picture. Give it to me. Okay, here we go. Let's bring it. Okay. Yeah, the back panel lists. Where's the impedance mentioned on here? I'm looking at it. I'm not getting the entire back panel. Only part of the back panel.
Hang on, I can send it. If I send it to you, where do I send it to you? Do I send it in Discord or?
Is that's the rest of it? Well, just send it in Discord.
I just sent you the picture. I don't know if that's going to pop up anywhere, but
okay. Browser, thank you much. Sites, go here. All right, now there's the list of the speakers. There they are. There you are, you little monkey. Right here is where the speakers connect to the receiver, and you got obviously 7.1 speakers, so 7 speakers. Yeah, subwoofer. and it lists the impedance here. So these are all 3 ohm speakers. What is the ohmage on these RT2770 speakers? RCA. Manual. Impedance is the measurement of resistance on the speakers, and they've got to match. Because if you don't have that right, then problems. I'm trying to find a decent. Where's the manual library and make it impossible to actually manual. Ooh. Specification sheet. Can I look at it? All right, here we go. Ooh, okay. These are 8 ohm speakers.
Yeah, so not a good choice.
Not a good choice. Yeah, putting 8 ohm speakers into a 3 ohm. If this was a tube amp, I would say nope. That would cause an explosion. It will cause with solid state impedance mismatch. It won't blow up. It will work, but it'll sound wrong. That's it. It won't quite sound the way you expect it. It will function, but it won't be ideal. It doesn't have a power rating on these speakers either. Find a power rating. That's the other thing you have to take into account for speakers on how much wattage they are. That you have to have the speaker should be able to handle more wattage than the than is available to be pumped out through the system. Let's see. Specification sheet. Do we have any info? Input. Yeah, it's giving me total power, but not the individual speakers. All right, you're gonna have to look on the speakers. Will I just not be able to use the rear channels until I get the appropriate speakers? Honestly, Electo, what I would do if it's a 7.1 system, I would use use the sides speakers. Put those on the back. You'll be able to use the system as a 5.1 system, which it's not ideal, but you do want you get the back speakers, the front speakers, the middle front, and the subwoofer. That'll give you a 5.1 surround system while you try to find something appropriate. You may be able to put them in as your side surround speakers and get away with it for a while. It's not really going to hurt anything. Not going to cause any damage.
Especially since they're all, by the way, the entire run of impedance on all those connections is 3 ohms. So
Yeah.
every single channel there is 3 ohm speakers.
Yeah, it's not gonna break anything, but it's just not gonna be ideal. It'll work, but you should probably look for some sort of replacement. The good news is, if you go on like eBay or something, you could probably just find the speakers or something compatible that will work with it. Because people get rid of those all the time, which I don't understand. Speakers, if you have speakers that are compatible with the system, they still work. They don't go bad. Speakers hardly ever go. They're just a magnet for damn. Unless you break the paper cone on the speaker, you can't really or blow them up. If the speaker works, it works. You know? I don't understand why people get rid of them. But yeah, I would try to find appropriate ones, but using ones that are off impedance mismatch, not ideal, but it won't hurt anything. As long as the speakers are rated. And if they were from a previous surround sound system, they probably have a decent wattage name. So there you go, Mr. King Bing. 8 ohm speakers would play 4 decibels lower than comparable 3 ohm speakers with all the things being equal. Right. They'll be a little quieter and they might just, it's hard to explain. An impedance mismatch can shape the sound. So it'll just sound not right. It's hard to explain. like trying to explain sound terms to people from amps and stuff. But yeah, you'll be fine. It'll get you by for now. All right, that is going to do it for us this week. Folks, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your questions with us. We will be back next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we will be looking at the no limits build, no budget restriction. We're just going to build the biggest, craziest computer we have with current parts. So you can look over and see what exactly we choose for that. That'll be fun. If you have tech questions for us, send them to us this week. Send those to request@radiodeadair.com, like it says on the screen. Thank you so much, folks. That was a good evening. Good night.